Hey there, and thank you for joining us on another episode of the Designated Pundits. Match day 11 is over. We're here to recap it. We're here to talk about it. We have a special guest to talk about the New England Revolution, who are doing some really fun things as of recently. Stay right there. The Designated Pundits are up next. And as every great show does, it started with me off camera asking what's in my dog's mouth during the pre-cut rolls. Gentlemen, we are here. I am Bob Ventimiglia here with Scott Omer. Together we run the Designated Pundits podcast, a great Major League Soccer podcast. You know, each and every season we do the preseason, all 30 teams, but when something important happens, when something changes, when we need an update, we need to bring those guys back on. Today from the Revolution recap, Sean Donahue. Sean, how you doing today?
I'm good, man. If you had me on 4 weeks ago, I would have been talking about how terrible the season was for the Revs and how difficult it was to cover this team. But, man, they sure have turned things around over the past few weeks, and it looked like a completely different team.
It did. And one of the things that I say kind of stands true, which is if you have a defense, that's the hard part. You can buy goals. You can figure that one out. You know, like there is a price tag on goals in Major League Soccer, but not on defense. Revolution, as bad as you guys have been all season, and it's been pretty bad, the defense has been sound. Been sound. So I kind of like that. We're going to talk a little bit about them throughout the day as we go through our picks, while we talk about where we were right, where we were wrong, our best and worst of the week. But just a quick recap on MLS Week 11. Week 11 is just under 1/3 of the Major League Soccer season. We had a great week. We were in the plus. Alex, a 2.25 unit play on Crew and both teams to score hit. Scott, 3-0, up 2.97 units, making only 3 bets all week. And in Major League Soccer, home teams went 9 wins, 3 draws, and 3 losses. And from the 9:15 kickoff later, all the home teams won. So very interesting week how everything went. It was kind of chalky. It was all the home favorites, not a whole lot else going on there. But there were some interesting games, some high points, some low points, and we're here to talk about them today. Just a brief recap of our picks and plays so far here. For those of you watching either on Spotify video or on YouTube, you can see a graphic of where our show landed. Dion with a rough 0-4 week, but as always, Scott and Alex were there to lift us up, get us into that plus money. Overall, 8-8 on 16 wagers for plus 0.92 units, just about 1 unit up on the week. And on the 2025 season, 96-93 on 189 bets. I hope that math works out. Over 10.28 units in the green. That is how it does. Remember, guys, you can catch us giving our live picks every Thursday. You can find me on Twitter, dropping new graphics, dropping new sports model, percentages, numbers, all that stuff. If you're a nerd, get on that. We'll be there for you. And then tune in Thursday, 8 o'clock, as we bring our picks live. But let's get into the week that was and talk about our best of the week. Scott and Sean, you guys kind of have the same thing. Sean, why don't we throw over to you first?
Yeah, I mean, I touched on it earlier. This Revolution team put up a really good result against Toronto. Toronto obviously not been a great team this year, but just the culmination for the Revs of winning 4 games in a row. The shutout streak they have going, 385-minute active shutout streak, 4 straight shutouts, 3 shutout road wins for the first time in club history. You mentioned the defense, Bob, only 7 goals allowed through 10 games, the fewest in club history. A lot of things are going right for this team right now. And you look at how the season started for them, the defense was there from the beginning. And for me, when I talked about this team in the offseason, I was worried about them coming out and bringing in 2 international center backs to step into this lineup, 2 guys that had never played in MLS before, that didn't speak the same language. And I thought that was going to take some time to build, if it worked out at all. And they pretty much right away figured it out and were playing pretty well together. And that kind of set the tone for the defense early on. The problem early on wasn't the defense, it was the offense, which was absolutely terrible. Not quite Sporting Kansas City 0 shot terrible, but
But
pretty
it was
close.
over a longer
Pretty
period
close.
of time. It was,
It
6 weeks before there was a goal from the run of play?
Right,
Like,
you were watching this team, and it was like, when is they going to get their first goal? And it was an own goal. And when are they going to score their first goal? And it was a set piece. When are they going to get their first non-set piece goal? And it's like,
and it was a penalty.
yeah, you're a couple months in, and you were still waiting for the first run of play goal, and then even the first actual run of play goal was a recycled corner kick, so it wasn't really counted as a run of play, but it was still sort of a set piece. And finally, it's all coming together where you saw this Carles Gil fantastic goal in this match. I know you have the clip. I don't know if you want to show it now or later.
Oh, we're going to show it now.
Let's go now.
But it starts with a fantastic turnover that the Revs create at midfield, and then build up down the side and find Gold, who's kind of taken over the right back spot from Brandon Bai, which is one of the storylines of the season. Puts in a decent cross, comes out to Carles Gil, one times a fantastic shot into the upper corner. Could be a goal of the week from Carles Gil right there. Fantastic goal from the Revs. Again, maybe not the most repeatable way to score a goal on offense from the Revolution, but just a fantastic strike that put the Revolution up early. And, this has also been a team that sometimes has gone up early and taken their foot off the gas. We didn't see that in this game. They went up 2-0, could have gone up 3-0, maybe even 4-0 with the chances they had in this match. Campana, who was a guy that started off the season slowly for the Revolution, you were a little bit worried that they spent all this money on him, wasn't scoring. Then he got hurt. He was out for several games, came back. Finally got on the score sheet. Now he's got a second goal for the Revs this year. And he's a guy that if he can get hot for the Revs, and it looks like that might be happening, that's going to be a huge difference maker for this team, because they haven't had a good striker really since Adam Buxa left, and since Gustavo Bo was able to stay healthy in the past, and he left as well. So it's things offensively has been the big question mark all season long, and that's finally clicking for this team. Not to ramble on too much, but the big difference here for me has been that Caleb Porter has simplified how they play, because early on in the season they were playing this 4-5-1, which Caleb Porter is known for, which he's played throughout his career as a coach, but he wanted them to play offensively in a 3-5-2. So they're trying to slow things down and switch up the formation when they were attacking, and that was part of the problem for this team. They were really taking too long to build, and these last few games they've switched to a 3-man backline or a 5-man backline, whatever you want to call it. And that's how they want to play offensively as well as defensively. So it's a lot simpler. They're able to play faster. You saw both the goals in this game were quick counterattack goals that they scored. When early on in the season, they weren't really counterattacking at all. And there's a lot of pace on this team. So it makes sense to do that. It took Caleb Porter maybe a little bit longer to figure that out than he should have, but now that he's figured it out, things seem to be clicking.
The thing that the thing that I really like about it is you can see the way that this formation actually favors the players in this group. We were talking before we started recording about Carles Gil, and that was the best thing that I saw this week, right? Was his whole, it's not just his banger goal, right? But it's his whole game, because you saw him starting to be more influential, which is the thing that he's actually good at, is get on the ball, pull the strings, make stuff happen. And you saw him dropping deeper into the midfield, picking up the ball, creating number imbalances, causing problems, then being able to turn, look up, look downfield, and spring meaningful passes, right? And string stuff together. And it's not just that, right? All that is good. That's what you expect out of a number 10. But you see Carles Gil also working back, playing defense, making challenges, making interceptions, being a nuisance on the other side of the ball. Caleb Porter at the end of the game in his post-game interview said something about how we're a defense first team, and what's the words he used? Like, we think of defense like we think of breathing, like you do it or you die. You see that sort of commitment and that buy-in out of this group, and they're actually turning that sort of solidity into now an offense. And you're right, that change to have two forwards, that makes all the difference. Now when Carles Gil gets on the ball, when other players deep get on the ball, when Feingold gets on the ball and drives in, there's actually somebody in the box. There's people to aim at. There's more people crashing. I think it's a hugely meaningful change for this team.
I like that, and I'll tell you what, I think Sandro Schwartz needs a little walk in the park with Caleb Porter. I think they need to have a little discussion, pick each other's brains there. One thing that I do think is repeatable here is Al Hussein Yusuf. I believe that's who stepped up to make the interception. I could not zoom in far enough, but just based on the location, left midfield, that's going to be who I assume made the official pick here. When I had an assist later on in the match. That's been fantastic. And I just really think part of it is Toronto was caught with their pants down. Like that is, they were miserable. And I'll show the clip later on the Campana goal. And it's like a player stepped up and could have intercepted it. One more step, but he didn't. He took 3 steps back instead. Like it's all these little things Toronto's doing wrong. So while I don't think Revolution is like a team that we can just, throw in the playoffs and just say, oh, they're great, they're fixed. They're winning games that they wouldn't have won last year. They're winning games they wouldn't have won 5 weeks ago. And that to me is making a difference. If you want to be considered even mediocre, you got to be putting this Toronto team right down right now. And that's exactly what they did.
Yeah, absolutely. And you talk about last year. Last year, this team was losing games and blowouts, every week. And this season, even when they weren't playing well at the beginning of the year, every game was still close, right? Every game they were still in. The offense never looked like a threat early on in the season, but they were still, losing by 1 goal, 2 goals at most. They weren't getting blown out, which they were last year. And that was a kind of a key sign for me this season. Is last season it looks like the players quit on Caleb Porter. Things were going so bad that the effort didn't seem there by the end of the year. And this season started off, just as bad results wise as last season ended. Pretty much a completely new team, players wise, and they didn't quit. When they were 5 games into the season or 4 games into the season without a win, they didn't quit. They could have quit. They didn't. They kept putting that effort in there, even when the offense was doing nothing. And eventually they figured out something on offense. They started to score some goals, and that to me just shows that the locker room's together. Even when things are going bad, they stuck together and continue to follow what Caleb Porter wanted to do. Because last year, by the end of last season, it seemed like that, the team had quit, and I thought the team was ready to move on from Caleb Porter. Instead, they brought in basically a completely new roster, tried it again, gave it another go, and seems to have worked out so far over 5 games. It's still too early to really get too excited, because they had a 4-game winning streak in the middle of last season, and that did not lead to anything. So too soon to get too excited, but this feels different.
Still a big long season. Do we want to watch that Campana goal? You teased it earlier, Bob.
Yeah, we might as well throw it up here. And what we're going to see, you're going to see a classic breakaway and a striker strike. It's not a exceptionally hit. Well, it's not a banger in the sense that
is great.
The placement is fantastic. He does that where he sneaks it past the keeper, hits the post, and it trickles around. Just watch the play. This is a little bit off of a breakaway. Here you see him go to the man running, and then boom, in the box. That was Yusuf on the assist for this one for sure. Yes, you're right. Exceptional placement. What I'm saying is it wasn't a volley. It wasn't a bicycle kick. It wasn't anything. This is what you have to put away. It's a very tough angle. Gets it past the goalkeeper's hand, maybe even produced because people weren't expecting him to shoot from where he was. But if you're going to shoot that, how many times do we watch those every Saturday just miss, just go out of bounds? It didn't. And Campana, he's going to have to do that about 25 more times this season, but it's already looking up.
Yeah, that's a nice, repeatable format for creating chances.
Absolutely.
He needs to score that more often than he misses it for New England to achieve meaningful, status this season. But New England doesn't have to do a ton to be one of the most improved teams. But if they get that chance, right? I know that's his weaker foot, but if they get that chance and he scores a reasonable amount of those, and they can be defensively solid in the way that they have been defensively solid, then they will give themselves as good a chance as anybody else in the East of being in that playoff picture.
Yeah, and it just harkens back to a few weeks ago where Campana had a breakaway that he couldn't convert. So to see him put that one away in this game, in that situation, is a positive sign, because again, he got off to a slow start with this team, first when he was playing and then getting injured. So they put a lot of money into him, a lot of faith in him, and if he can continue to score goals like that, it's going to be huge. The one negative side of this that I do think is worth mentioning is you talk about how this formation fits Carles Heel, and I think it fits Feingold, then Miller, the 2 fullbacks. I think they do very well in it. But on the flip side of that is you have a guy in Luca Langoni, not Ganago and not Luca Langoni, and Luca Langoni is the club record signing from last year, and he's barely playing now that they switched into this formation. Super fast guy. I actually thought before they made this switch that the game before that, I'm forgetting which one it was, he was actually one of the more dangerous players. And then they make the formation switch. He goes to the bench. And I think Caleb Porter actually said a few weeks ago that if he does play in this formation, it's probably as a wing back, which is, weird for a guy that's been a very strong attacker for them. Probably not a good fit either. So their club record signing's not really playing. He's coming off the bench for, token minutes. That's not great. And you mentioned Gonago, I think he's pretty good as a second striker, but his finishing this year has not been up to snuff. He had one goal that was basically a tap in, and then you saw in this game, he had a good chance that ended up in a nice rebound from Sean Johnson. I don't know why Sean Johnson spilled it. That Carles Hill almost put away, but he had a couple of chances in this game that he probably should have put away. He's had a lot of chances this season that he should have put away. I think he's got 3.2 xG on the season, only one goal, and he's a guy that's on a 6-month loan that if he hits certain performance metrics is automatically extended to another 6 months. So for the rest of the season. And then if the Revolution were to buy him, he becomes a designated player. So the Revs have what to me shouldn't be a tough decision to make, because I think he clearly hasn't done enough.
Decision at this point.
He clearly hasn't done enough to become a designated player. But I would like to see them find a way to try Luca Langoni in that role, the guy that is on the books and is going to be part of this team for the foreseeable future, as opposed to Gonago, who they have that option to move on from and would be a designated player and has not lived up to the hype. And then there's also Chonkalai too, who's also fighting for one of those spots, and he's a designated player on the Revs, coming back from ACL injury. That's got to take some time, but at some point they have 4 of their most expensive players fighting for 2 spots in the roster. So this was very much a roster built for that 4-5-1. So and you can't switch from the 5-3-2 now that it's working, right? So there's some tough decisions to be made personnel wise if they stick with this formation long term, which right now there's no reason to switch from it.
Looking ahead at the Revolution schedule, they are in Orlando. It's a tough game, but then they host San Jose. They are in Sporting KC, at DC United, at Montreal. So they have a little 3-game road trip, but it's probably the 3 easiest teams you could be facing in that stretch. They do go on to play Cincinnati, Nashville before having a really easy summer. Again, Montreal, DC, facing all the good teams. So part of the problem is that they played some really good teams early, but we're going to look and see if they can turn it around over the next few weeks. But let's jump back into the scheduled programming for today, because I had one, the best of my week was not the Revolution. It was San Diego FC. 5 goals against Dallas. Lozano, 2 goals and an assist. Dreyer with a goal and an assist. 2.13 XG. Teams overperforming, putting 5 in the back of the net. That goes against one of my bets, but it wasn't a squeaker. Once we knew the game was over for a long time, so I was able to enjoy it before. Once the disappointment struck, I was like, okay, it's off. Let's just enjoy a good game. San Diego's been looking really good. They kind of stumbled a little bit there, but I think they are right back on track.
I think they are. I think they're a team with short memories. They go out, they play hard. They know they're going to lose some games, and I think they're a team that doesn't get too wrapped up into that. Like, oh, we lost a couple games in a row. Like, woe is us. We're so bad. No, they don't care. They're just right back at it. When you mention the, overperforming their XG, I think it's that thing. We talked about this in relation to Montreal. Montreal generates a ton of XG, but they don't have the quality to turn those into actual goals. San Diego. Yeah. They have the quality. So they generate too, but they've got the quality to turn stuff that's, 0.5, 0.6, whatever. They're turning those into goals, on a regular basis. They've got the quality there.
I think last year when people were saying, oh, Miami's has to come back to earth, they're performing 14 goals above expected. And it's like, well, yeah, it's because they have guys on the squad who are putting in 14 goals that no one else on the planet could be putting in the back of the net right now. So I think that, XG, I love XG, but it only tells 80% of the story.
Yeah, I think with that San Diego team in a game like this, you hit that limit of where XG starts to break down. You think of Chucky's, I think, second goal, where he kind of dribbles the keeper and then shoots from an awkward angle on the empty net. That's one that as somebody who's just watching that, you're like, that's got to be a goal.
But didn't it also feel like it was going in the whole time? Like, I had no doubt.
You never had any doubt. But if you give that an XG, that XG is way less than 1.
Someone saying, why is only 3 people watching? Your show is worldwide. Well, we actually have a counter. It's actually much, much higher than 3 people watching because we're on X, we're on LinkedIn, all these other places where you can find our work. And we will get views, not as much our gambling shows. This is kind of a practice in
Thursday
commentary.
Show does a little bit better, yeah.
Like 6 times the viewers. Okay.
The funny thing there is, you talk about Chucky Lozano and you talk about San Diego overperforming his expected goals. You'd think he'd be a guy that'd be part of that. He's actually underperforming his expected goals.
Yeah.
So the fact that they're doing that with the rest of the team and not him is kind of an interesting fact to me, because you think if you look at what he's capable of, that he would be one of those guys that would be part of that overperformance, but he's actually not.
Now, when we go to talk about our worst of the week, talk about underperformers, we all picked the same one. It's the LA Galaxy. They lost 1-0 to Sporting KC. And Sporting KC didn't have a single shot. First time in Major League Soccer history that's happened. We've had draws before, even had like 1-1 draws where one team didn't get any shots off. Galaxy had 71% possession, 1.39 expected goals, 0 expected goals. When you don't take a shot, you don't get any XG for that. Maya Yoshida, 13-minute own goal, and it was pretty bad. SKC again, 0 goals, 0 XG, 0 shots, 0 shots on target. Quite poor. Scott, do you want to take us through what happened here when I pull the video up?
Yeah. What are you looking at? The own goal. I mean, you're going to watch this ball come across out to the left-hand side. You're going to see actually nobody come into the box really for SKC, but this ball is just whipped into a dangerous area and Yoshida can't quite get his feet sorted out. Look, this is an occupational hazard. If you're a center back, this kind of stuff happens to you. And, if you play the game long enough, you're going to give up this specific goal. And so, when you're talking about Maya Yoshida, there's nothing really, I don't know, like shameful or bad about this specific incident, right? In a vacuum, you're like, look, this happens. But in this game where the Galaxy were so unable to generate anything meaningful for themselves, it was just a killer. Absolutely a killer.
Absolutely a killer for a team that is looking for their first win of the season, has not come, and it's almost heartbreaking because, I know Yoshida cares so much about this team. He cares so much about winning. You could see it on his face, how much that hurt to be the guy. To me, it just looks like he was turning and his feet kind of got caught up on himself. I think if the ball wasn't there, he might have just fallen over. It looked like a pretty clumsy play there. But when the ball, he just can't get his feet out of his own way, goes in the back of the net. Sporting KC gets one of the dubious awards, being the first team in Major League Soccer to get a win without a shot on goal.
And I think the Galaxy, somebody's going to have to look this up for me and fact check, but if the Galaxy don't win their next game, they become the team with the longest losing streak to start a season. Because right now I think it's a 3 or 4-way tie at 11.
Yes, and they have already surpassed the worst start ever for a Major League MLS Cup winning team.
Yeah, so bad records. Look, you know what? The thing about this game that was really bad to me is the Galaxy dominated. They were in control so much. Kansas City could not get out of their own half for huge, chunks of time. And for all of that, the Galaxy had 1 shot on target. You know what I mean? That,
yeah,
the winning without taking a shot thing, that's kind of like a funny stat for Kansas City. Kansas City won, right? Their players are buzzing. Their defense, they loved that. They had a great time. This is about the Galaxy. This is about their inability to turn a completely dominant performance into anything meaningful in the stat board. Sean, I don't know how you feel about that.
No, it's. I mean, if I was a Sporting Kansas City fan, that would have been a tough one to watch. You got the 3 points, but saw your team get no possession, no shots, no nothing. Talk about unsustainable going forward. It's nice to do that once, but I don't think you're going to win a lot of games playing that way. But this LA Galaxy team, I think everyone knew it was going to be a struggle with Ricky Puig sidelined. I don't think anyone thought it was going to be this bad. And it's shocking to me to see a team with the level of talent they still have on that roster be unable to pull it off. What point, even after winning an MLS Cup, do you start having to look at the coach?
I don't think necessarily it's quite his fault. Yeah, just for a few things. Puig is out. That's a bigger deal than we're all making it out to be. Joveljic, their striker, their star number 10, is out, and I'm sorry they did not replace him. That's an empty spot on the roster. And then you lose Brugman to a salary restraint. You have all these constraints on your team that, maybe we should be making it easier for teams who win MLS Cup to run it back again the next year. But there's so many things wrong. And just think about it. Galaxy had one good season. The previous year, they were last place in the West. So there were pieces that mattered more than, maybe the sum of the parts for this team when they put it together and had an amazing stretch. They were really bad 2 years ago, and it goes like that. This is not a defensive team that can turn it around with a couple of signings. It's the midfield, and who knows what happens when you get that.
I think this Galaxy team, if you really look at the offense, because they dominated this game, right? And the midfield was winning the ball back everywhere. There is a inability to play to their players' strengths. Gabriel Peck is a guy that, doesn't necessarily want the ball at his feet, 10 yards back so that he can run at somebody. He wants that ball. He wants to attack that ball a little bit behind, right? Joseph Paintsil wants something different. Christian Ramirez needs something different. And there's this part of me that's there's this lack of ability to change pace, right? You have the slow buildup that the buildup is the same every time. And it's always slow, and it never speeds up, and it never goes fast. And where's that incisive pass? And it's not like nobody can do it, but because Ricky's not on the field doing it, nobody does it. And they're not game planning to figure out how to do that. It's almost okay, well, Ricky's not here, just run it back, somebody will do it. And it's not happening. Marco Reus did 1 or 2 passes like that for the whole game. That's not enough.
I thought he actually looked pretty good at points over the last few weeks, but it's not enough. I know that he's not necessarily that guy, but he's being paid like that guy. And if you have the right agent and you know that you're going to have to take on new responsibilities at your workplace, whatever that workplace may be, you put a little extra work in the offseason to bring your fitness up. You put a little extra work in the offseason to learn some of the skills that may not, you need to know what you're going to need to do. For one thing about Vanny, you're right. He 2 wingers, 1 striker, 1 number 10. That you could write that, you etch that in steel and send it. Maybe that is a fault to him, but the players collapsing around it. And we mentioned all the players who aren't there. We didn't mention Paintsil's huge injury. That's going to nag him for most of this season. It's a lot of moving parts. And again, this team is 1 season away from being the worst in the Western Conference. So it's not, maybe we shouldn't have been surprised that the collapse came so easily.
Yeah, maybe not. And things are not going to look up for them either, because Paintsil was obviously hampered by something. He came off injured. Peck took a knock. He was kind of holding his side, not necessarily a hip joint, but up in his gut almost. He came off injured, couldn't go.
That's a rib or an ab strain. Ugh.
Yeah, you're hoping it's not an abdominal strain that'll keep him out for weeks and weeks. But that's going to be something to watch. That team, who knows how healthy they're going to be coming into this next game.
Let's now jump into our prediction section. What you got right, what you got wrong. Feel free, Sean. I'm sure you talk about soccer enough to have made some great statements this week. But on the flip side is the next unit is going to be what you got wrong. What we got right. My best player is the one with the best odds, plus 112 on Quakes and Portland over 3.5 goals. I didn't see it being 4 goals for San Jose and 1 for Portland, but I did say live that I was divorcing myself from the outcome. I just want goals. I don't want to have to care who wins or if there's a draw. 3.97 XG, 5 goals. in my bet at 3.5 goals, hit in the 42nd minute. Not often you get to cash out and take a nap in the 42nd minute. That was a great play where I think we were spot on. Scott, your favorite play?
Ooh, my favorite play was probably the San Diego.
Going heads up on Bob, yeah?
Yeah. San Diego and over 1.5 plus 105. That was really nice. I felt like I really had my finger on the pulse of that San Diego team getting themselves turned around after three straight losses. That one felt like a really easy bar to clear, and yeah, it kind of was.
It was. FC Dallas is a very bad road team, but every once in a while I see some value, so I jumped on them on the double chance at plus 105, thinking maybe the draw was going to hit. No, it was a calamity there. Sean, any thoughts?
I liked your pick with both teams not to score in the Revs Toronto game. I thought that was a good one that you had there because Toronto's been the Revs defense has been really good, and the Revs offense has is on a little bit of good run, but it's questionable. So the chances of one of those two teams not scoring seemed like a wise decision. I think you got plus odds on it too. That seemed like a good bet to me.
Yeah, I think it was like plus 105. I just didn't want to be stuck in the place of picking which team wasn't going to score either.
Smart. Wise.
Next, what you got wrong, and I mean, this is kind of connected with what we just talked about. For me, it was Texas teams. Austin I had at home. They lost 3-0 to Minnesota. Minnesota's a good team, but I would have thought if they would won, maybe it would be like a 1-0 squeaker where, their defense kind of kept, 3-0. Austin did win the battle of XG, 1.13 XG to 0.51 XG, but Minnesota got all 3 points. And then again, as we said, FC Dallas. I like picking on these Texas teams, especially when they're at home. But Dallas, travel. I just thought that they got demolished. I would rather be on that side, though. Like, I feel like if I'm going to lose a bet, I'd rather just be totally wrong, no hope, because then I know it was a me problem, and I got to go, look at it again.
Yeah. Fair. For me, the thing that has stuck with me is I thought that the Red Bulls would make Miami work a lot harder for that win. Yes, I knew that Miami was well capable of getting that win, but they're not infallible. And I thought the Red Bull sort of had the tools to make that Miami team really work for it, and they didn't at all. I think they really kind of rolled over. So that kind of stuck with me. I didn't expect that. I did hear, though, and Bob, I don't know if you know anything about this. I heard that the Red Bull team went and did some parties because F1's down in Miami, or was down.
I don't know. I think they had a pretty bad week too. They did. No one podiumed for the Red Bull Racing Club. I don't do F1, but I read it. I
mean, I would be a little surprised that, if the Red Bull team didn't go down there and get an invite to go hang out or something like that. But, you just wonder if they were maybe a little distracted.
Maybe. I think it is Sandro Schwartz. I think that we are getting off of what worked in the playoffs. We switched to a 5-man back line, 3-man back line, depending on which way you played it. And then it worked fantastically. It wasn't exciting soccer. It wasn't high-scoring soccer, but they got the job done each and every step. And when it came to the regular season, it's always hard to recreate that. I throw last year's FA Cup where Manchester United beat Manchester City in a game. I was like, how does that even? They're terrible. How did that even happen? But it's in a one-off, anything can happen. And Red Bull just did it one-off. This season they went off and retooled to get a 3-man center back line. They got wing backs, not full backs, in Omar Valencia, Raheem Edwards, Cam Harper, they moved out there, Kyle Duncan, more his better position. So all the changes were to this. And then all of a sudden we decide that the offense not scoring goals in one game we didn't score. I think it was DC United or something. We should have scored a goal, we didn't. And then it's okay, we're going back to a 4-man back line, which kind of seemed like a hasty decision. And now we're actually getting beat up for real week in and week out. There's nothing wrong with losing to Miami by 5-1. I don't think. an incredible team. And, you know, it was like 2 goals before you could even blink. And they're in the back of the net. Like, okay. And then it's like, okay, 3-1. Yeah, not that bad. It's just he's now playing with the formation that he did not build the team around and doesn't have the players to put in those positions. Like the opposite of what the Revs are doing. Like our best players are on the field in positions we don't want them in. You know, part of it is still Lewis Morgan being hurt. Part of it is unavailability by players. There's every week 6, 7, 8 players on the injured list, and that's fluky. It's not been an issue for Red Bull for a very long time. We've always had players with knocks, but it's not like a year in and year out, blame the training staff, blame the training, blame the pit. No, it's just they're just playing bad soccer right now, and the attempt to fix it to make them more interesting broke the whole spine.
It's an interesting analysis because, like, fundamentally though, I think you're right. Like, this team had an identity, they had something they were working towards,
and there's no press now. There's no press.
Yeah, and they've really gotten away from that. And yeah, the press, like, I can't remember the last time I heard about the Red Bull press. It certainly hasn't happened this year. You know, where because Sean's here, we're going to reference New England, where New England had an identity and has been working to build on that identity over time, and things are being, like, hard decisions are being made, right? Luca Langoni is not starting. You know, you have expensive players riding the bench, but everything serves the identity of the team and the thing that is actually bringing the team, you know, along and pushing them forward and making them more successful. And, you know, Red Bull is kind of doing the opposite.
Identityless ball. Yes. And I get to talk about them because guess who we play this weekend? The LA Galaxy. And guess who's going to win that match?
I mean, personally, look, LA Galaxy fans, I'm sorry, it's not personal, but it's kind of personal. But I would really like for the Red Bulls to win that game and for LA to own that 12 game to start the season all by themselves.
I would love, you know how they press the play call into a record in Nashville? I want Red Bull to just demolish the Galaxy, like 7-0, take the entire game call, put it on vinyl, and send it to Andre Reyes. That would make me happy. That'd be full circle.
That's petty. That's really petty.
It is, but that's what we do here on the Designated Pundits. You can catch us again when we're extra petty and giving bets Thursday at 8:30. Sean, thank you so much for being here today. Sean, let us know one more time where we can find your work.
Yeah, you can listen to me every weekend on Revolution Recap Podcast. We're on every social media platform and all the places you look for podcasts. So you can find me there.
Thank you so much for joining us here today. Thank you for everyone at home for watching the Designated Pundits. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. Again, you can find us anywhere you find podcasts on YouTube and now video on Spotify. Thank you guys so much for joining us. See you on Thursday.